Roger Lewis from the National Steering Committee of Disabled People Against Cuts, DPAC, and I think I'll just start with one thing Mariam said there, which is you stand by me, I'll stand by you. And I know now when I'm going out onto a council estate to talk on a welfare benefits meeting or anti-bedroom tax meeting, if I'm out on the street, if I'm on my workplace, if I'm arguing on my union branch, I can do so with confidence and an absolute assurity that we're going to destroy this government and beat this bedroom tax. Yeah. I know that's the case because I've got Mariam standing by. And everyone else we're working with, we know we can win because we're united. And that's the message that I really think that I brought to you up in Manchester here today, is that it's what DPAC has been doing, Disabled People Against Cuts. We formed 3 years ago, just down the road here in Birmingham, at Tory Party conference, just after the Tories were elected, because we saw what this government was going to be doing and we knew it was going to come out and hit us very viciously. And it certainly's done that. It's tried to pick us off, and this is what this government wants to do. It wants to divide us and separate us in any way it can. And it picked on disabled people for one reason. It thought we were people who had no voice. We thought that no one would stand up with this. We thought that we couldn't stand and fight together. But we're not the voice of the voiceless. We've shown we've got a voice, and not just that we've got teeth and we fight back. So we've had it. We've had it hard. We've had it hard. As you heard from Mariam, we've been fighting against ATOS. And the work capability assessments brought in by the DWP, a direct attack on disabled people, not to find those who can work and who can't work, but to punish us. Once again, being disabled is being something that's seen as something shameful in society, and their rhetoric has been very effective. It's been backed up by a continual barrage of vindictive rhetoric in the press and in the media, as well as from government ministers, calling us benefit cheats, calling us benefit scroungers, lazy, work shy. We saw how effective that was. We saw it during the Paralympics last year when Cameron was speaking in that stadium and claiming that this government was changing the way that disabled people in this country were being perceived. We knew what he actually meant by that, because in the second week of the Paralympics, the figures for disability hate crime actually rose. One of our disabled people's organisations in London, Inclusion London, did a survey on the streets, and it showed that people's perception was that disability-related benefits, that the fraudulent rate was between 50 and 70%, where the actual figure is less than 0.5%. That's how successful this government's been, but it hasn't had it its own way. We've shown we can stand up and we can fight back, and we did that, and we're doing it against ATOS. We've shown that using a combination of tactics with our direct actions, with the roadblocks of Regent Street, Trafalgar Square, the occupation of the Department of Work and Pensions main building in central London, and just a few months ago we took a little trip out into Buckinghamshire to squat in the front yard of one Mr. Ian Duncan Smith in his 8-bedroom country mansion. I was proud to trample over his front yard, just like he's trampling over the lives of hundreds of thousands of disabled people up and down this country. But we've said the one thing: we knew we're not a hardest hit, we're not a special case. What the government is out to do to us, it wants to do to the rest of our class, and it's just picking on us because it thought we were an easy target. And our message has been simple throughout. It's been unity, unity, unity. So we went out to build the maximum support we could with all other groups of workers, as Mariam was saying, and it's been incredibly important. We have gone tooth and nail to build support with our colleagues in the PCS, so that we can avoid the divisions that could happen between us on the front line, benefit claimer against benefit worker. And we've been successful so far in doing that. We will not let this government divide us. We'll be out there, and we have been on picket lines with Unison, with the public sector workers in housing departments and social work departments, where workers there could be seen as the ones delivering the cuts. But as Mariam said, many of those are seeing their pay and pensions attacked at the same time. As they're pushing us out of the workforce, they're threatening them with a sack, they're threatening them there with unemployment, and they're threatening them with what's now becoming the shame of being an unemployed worker, so they can attack those workers and push down salaries. We're not going to stand for that. We will stand for unity, we will stand for solidarity, and we'll stand for action. So that's why DPAC's been fighting, and we're going to be continuing to fight this year. In the last week of August, we're going to be staging another whole week of activity in central London, but around the country, to mirror the week of activity we had against the ATOS in our ATOS Olympics last year. And that will be involving direct action, in local protests, in protests outside local ATOS offices, but also taking part in the Welfare Benefit Justice campaign, building the Anti-Bedroom Tax and Benefit Justice Federation by our involvement in that, and showing that the way to do that is through grassroots organisation and grassroots campaigning. That's been the success of DPAC, and that's the model we are taking around the country to meetings like this and saying this is what we need to see more of, this is what we need to do, we need to unite the struggles. And we have one date in mind at the moment, and it's September the 29th. And the place we have in mind is here in Manchester, and the target we have in mind is the Tory Party conference. Unite have already booked a train from London. We're going to see, we're going to be pushing in my own union, Unison, to match that. We want to see a battle of the flags. We want to see Unite trying to outdo GMB, trying to outdo Unison to get their colours on that demonstration and to get the bodies and the people out there on the streets and at that conference. And we're going to be pushing for that and to make sure we're a major part of that demonstration. We have a right to be there, and we're going to be there. Yeah. So that's our message to this conference. We are feeling optimistic, we're feeling strong. Behind that, we've thrown ourselves heart and soul into building the Welfare Benefit Justice, Anti-Bedroom Tax and Benefit Justice Federation, because we can win the bedroom tax. People are comparing it to the poll tax, and I think it's got that flavour, it's got that enthusiasm. And when you go around on the smaller states meetings and you say that to people, you can feel the enthusiasm rising. And when they hear that there's a national body organising it, they feel there's something big and something strong, and they're beginning to grow. And as those cups are biting deeper, we're pulling those people in, and they'll be there alongside us, fighting alongside us as well. But it also goes wider. We have to link it to the fight against universal credits, because later on this year, the government wants to combine all of those benefits into one single payment, one single monthly payment. And it's the one thing I say about it is we don't get evicted for the bedroom tax, we get evicted for rent arrears. If they don't get you one way, they'll get you the other. We know that because we've been having that for 3 years, as Mariam has said, with the work capability assessments, throwing off unemployment benefit, with the attack on disability living allowance and non-employment related benefit, with the attack on the independent living fund, which supports people with high needs stay out of institutions that we fought out of 30 years ago. And we're not going back there now. So we need to build that campaign broad, we need to build it wide, because these cuts will take their time and they'll take their toll. And we need to be out on those estates, building the small meetings, building the small estate meetings, building the small campaigns, bringing them together into this one united struggle. And then we start putting the pressure on the TUC, because we know we need to stand, and we want to see action, we want to see action, we want to see a general strike, we want to see the biggest and massive protest that we can around this country, but we also need to see more. We need to see sustained action in whatever way the unions can do it. As we're seeing in the build-up to Tory Party conference, we're seeing strikes by the CWU, we're seeing strikes by the postal work, by the teachers, and we're seeing strikes with PCS workers. We need the big guns on board, and we need to unite. We need to see a fight in Unison, we need to see a fight in GMB, we need to see a fight united against this government, against privatisation. We need a fight for our health service, for the welfare state, and against the neoliberal principles that lie behind it, because the one danger is we've got to tackle the problem of labour as well. Because one thing we know, it was Gordon Brown who brought in Atos. It was Gordon Brown that brought in the work capability assessments. It was a Labour government that took on the first round of the closure of the Remploy factories that we fought so hard off to try and support last year. And it was a lack of confidence by the trade union leaders that led them to pull the third day of strike action on the Remploy factories when those factory workers were just about due to go into occupation. We've seen what the trade unions are capable of doing when they do pull those members out, because we know, because DPAC was there, we were on the demonstration of 2 million when public sector workers stood up and fought against pensions, and we were on the picket lines with PCS workers, we were on the picket lines with Unison workers, and we want to be back on those picket lines again. So we'll be agitating on all of the fronts, because we know the mood for a fight back is growing, both in the workplaces and out on the streets and in our communities. That's DPAC's method of working, and I absolutely and thoroughly commend it to you people here in Manchester, and I'm really looking forward to coming back here on the 29th. Thanks very much.